Hi guys, it's Aegis here. So today I'm going to do another deck profile, but not from the new set 11 yet, because I'm still want to test a little bit more. I've already been doing some testing, so getting some ideas and also changing some of the stuff, and I still think I need to test a little bit more before I actually deliver the list to you guys. But there's another clan that is out in Japan for the Japan version for a while, and going to release in English very soon, which again is a Tachikaze. So it's not a Gaia build, but I try to use some of the new cards, trying to make it a little bit different from Gaia, because I think a lot of people seen what Gaia can do already, and I've already made my Gaia deck profile, so this will be something different, but it's still strong. A little bit weak against force clans, but it can go there if you play it well. And of course I will tell you how every parts works, so you will know what's happening. So for starter, you're still using Gigarex, nothing special there. And then I'm running 3 of the Gigarex, so once you see Gigarex, you definitely know it's not likely to be a Gaia build. And he will be our main ride, even though I'm only running 3 copies because I want to have more space for other cards. And I'm not running too many Great Freeze here because I'm not going to aim for a long game. I want to win as soon as possible, so I'm not using a lot of Great Freeze here. So what Gigarex do is, as long as it's on Vanguard Circle, when it attacks, no matter Vanguard or Vanguard, you can select like all your regards or any of your regards and place a gauge for them. But of course, you need to, let's say if you have 5 cards, you first need to determine how many units that you're going to place gauge, and then you just put them down in any order, but you can't look at them until you put every gauge with these effects. So after you place the gauge, then you can look at them. And this card also gets 5k for each regard you have on the field. You don't need to put a gauge in order to get a power, which is very nice because your Vanguard can be very big, which is Gaia cannot do most of the time, because Gaia is 12k. If you don't have a boost, most likely you're going to go for is 24, and you usually won't want to kill your grade 3 that fast, so you will be killing your grade 2s, which will make it a 21k. So it's kind of weak even if it's a 2 crit attack, but with Gigarex we can have a higher power to give your opponent some pressure to force them some guards, like a PG. Also a second skill, which is active skill. If you are willing to discard 5 of your gauges on your field for the turn, 3 of your front row regards will get 5k. And if your opponent is having 4 or less damage, you can deal 1 damage to them. So this is also a way to, 1, to pump up your regards so they can be stronger, and 2, if there's a little bit damage difference that you want to chase, you can give them 1 damage, or if they are on 4, you can push them to 5, so every single attack matters. But the weak point of this skill is as long as your opponent hit a trigger, it's still going to make you a little bit headache, but you can't force your opponents to not have triggers, or you can't always face opponents not have triggers. So it's a skill there that you can use to help you chase some damage, then you can do whatever you want. But to me, I do like this skill, and it's quite easy to actually get 5 gauges, so I'm putting him as my main Vanguard. Okay, and then next I'm running 3 of the Slicing Dragon Terror Ferricino. So it's something that you see in a Gaia build, and we still put it here because he can retire something and draw you cards, and if and also it can, if you retire a unit with gauge, you can pop one of your opponent's units, so it's still very helpful, because they're always a unit that you see your opponents playing and you want it gone, and if you can't simply attack and kill it, because they probably can guard it, then this is your solution to it. And it's still okay to ride him as a Vanguard, not as bad as when you are using a Gaia build, because you don't need a lot of gauges to do a lot of things. You keep drawing cards until you draw into this. So yeah, it's still a good card to use, and it's pretty easy to use, I would say, and doesn't involve any counter blast, any soul blast. Same with your Gigarex, so even if your opponent is going to damage deny you, you can steal all sort of things. Then if you see these Great Freeze, I'm not sure if you can guess it, but of course I'm running one of the angerblader here. So angerblader limited to one. There are builds that only running one of the angerblader, and they are trying so hard with order, with draw triggers, with moving the gauges and then pick it up, all sort of things to meet him. But in my build, I put him as a backup plan, and my main focus is still on Gigarex. But Angerblader is still a winning condition, and there are games that I actually draw it in my first hand, and I can just rush a little bit earlier, and even if I can't finish them off with Angerblader, I can use up all the resources, and next turn if I got it Gigarex, I can just ride it and push out the pressure again, or just simply use Angerblader to withstand my regards and keep attacking. So also he can give 5k to all front row units, so it's kind of better than the second skill of Gigarex, which can only give 5k to 3 front row regards and can't give it to Vanguard, because Vanguard you get the big power already. So that's two ways for you to win, and of course even with this build you can still try to, if you see an Angerblader getting the one arrow gauge, you can still move them around so that you can pick it up in your hand and next turn ride it, then maybe you can also win there. So next, entering grade 2s. First I'm running the Dilo for Pyro. So this is one of the drawing sources, maybe help you to draw into your Gigarex or maybe your Angerblader or any pieces that you want, that you, or even this, because you draw one, then you can call one out, and you can also give that a gauge. So not only you try to increase your field from your deck, even though you draw one and then just call one from hand, so it's still something to help you draw your pieces. Also allows you to have early gauges on the field, so you can even use Gigarex skill, the second skill, as early as you first ride if you manage it well. So still very nice. And the second skill, you probably won't be using it that much, but of course I am prepared to call him under the gauge, so he can still be a 19k attacker somehow if you manage to put him in your gauge. Then since we have Angerblader, and of course we will have our Sweeper, Akukento, nothing much to say about him, just easy to get free gauges at, like right now with this build, because he will give himself one, and Gigarex can give him one, Angerblader can give him whatever you want. Even if you use your Dilo Proparo to call him out, you can also give him one, and he will give himself one when he attacks the Vanguard. So just these two can already make him a 19k. What you need to do is just find a way to give him one more gauge, then he will be like kind of untouchable. So yeah, still very strong. You don't need Angerblader to make him strong, and if you stock too much gauges on him, of course he can be a very big attacker, but you can also use it as a Gigarex skill to give your opponent's damage, because you're willing to stock the gauges under him. Then I'm running 2 of the bright tops, just help me to pick up some key resources, and he can help you to pick up 2 of them as long as you pay the counterblast. And you can see at like right now only angerblader needs counterblast, this uses counterblast, and this uses counterblast, so you should have some spaces to use your counterblast. And of course I have another card that uses counterblast, which is Gigarex, to retire some unit to draw myself some cards, and he can also stock some gauges to give himself some great power. Only lasts for a battle, but still allows you to tune a little bit numbers, having some good numbers to use. And with Gigarex, place 1 already. If you place 1 more, he can be a 19k himself. On the XL2, he can be already 24. So still good. But I try to limit my retiring stuff, and since I need to actually counterblast, give him a gauge in order to start counting gauges and getting power, so I'm only running 2 here. And lastly, I'm running 3 of the Regiodon, steal your key attacking combo pieces, and now with him, if I suddenly call a Echo Canto, I can still like give him a gauge from here, give him a gauge from here, and I just need 1 more gauge. So quite easy to reach 3 gauges again, and it's a more powerful sudden strike, I would say. Even though for Gaia, as long as you put a gauge, you can give that regard 5k or 10k depending if your opponent is a grade 3 or not. But using these is more stable. So simply 10k, I think that's nothing much more that we are asking for, and it's free again. So you can save your counterblast for this, or this, or this, or this. So, and it's so easy to stock him, stock gauges with this card, because as long as he attacks, you can select a regun and give it a gauge. You can even stock a few ones on him, so you can pick whatever you want to call. If you have extras, use them for Gigarex. And since we are using Regiodon, we are also using a Blue Sprint. So yeah, nothing much to say about him right now, because basically it's a grade 1 version of Regiodon, and the combo will be the same. You just try to stock your Echo Canto, your Barrow, and just try to call them out. Even if you're calling Gigarex or this, it's still fine. So just stock our gauges, try to pick some good cards under him, so whenever after you attack, use these to retire them, so you can do multiple attacks, and your Vanguard is still big. So after that, you can give them some triggers if you pull any, and try to win from there. And next, I'm running 2 of the Sandilo 4. So this also have your increased gauges and also allows you to move gauges. So if you see your angerblader under the gauge, you can put it under your Bitoffs. And I am also running 3 of the Resurrector X, so you have quite a few spaces or like hanger that you can stock your angerblader and pick it up after. So again, it's kind of free resources, and if you're using angerblader, feel free to put him under a gauge after you use the skill. If you are using Gigarex, then you can still stock gauges for him and then put him under something else. So you can move the gauges around, try to find your pieces, or try to help your Echo Can to gain the gauges, or put the key units under Blue Sprints or Regiodon, so you can do a more high quality multiple attack. Then I'm running 2 of the Prison Bird Great Researcher, because you want to find your Gigarex, you want to find your angerblader, but I don't suggest to put too much because other cards are more having a better function of the deck and it's more key to the deck, but he can simply be a 13k attacker as long as you put a new gauge, and it's not hard at all. So sometimes if there are like times that you really using XL1, then you can at least put him as a 23k, which can hit force Vanguard even if they got a trigger. So I still find him useful, but I don't need too much because I do have other resources that I can rely on if I see the key grade 3s that I need to pick up. And I'm running 2 of the Angry Raw Dragon Raw Barrel. So he is a buffer for your units that with gauge, and even if you suddenly call it with a Radiodon, no one will likely expect you to do this, or maybe a Boost Brain. Then you can Soul Blast 1, give one of your like low power regard suddenly a gauge, and count the gauge and give it 5k each per gauge. So not only Echo Candle can gain from there, even this, if you put a gauge under it and call it from gauge, it's already 19, and you suddenly call this one again, then you can pump it another 5k. And even Prison Bird can make it a sudden 18k by itself, and on XL2 marker 23k. So still hitting key numbers. Of course, for Echo Candle you can just give it massive power. Sometimes helps, but if you just normally call it, it can still work. So Sudden Strike, normal call, both works depending where is it. If it's under a gauge, then you can use it that way. If it's in your hand, then you can just call it. Then 2 Sonic Noah. Just help your Sweeper Echo Candle to get the 3rd gauge the easiest way, because you can use your Radiodon, Boost Brain to give it 1, it attack Vanguards to get 1, and boosted by this 3 already. So easy. And you kind of want to increase your chances to get gauges, so you can at least get 5 in your first turn, or at least 4 in your first turn, and then you don't need to use place too much gauges with Gigarex skill, maybe like 1 or 2, so you don't need to spam it all on the field, and which makes it quite easy to deck out. Even though these guys using skills is likely to have your deck out already, so you actually don't want to put too much gauges with Gigarex, but still put as much as gauges on the field and units on the field, so you can pump your Gigarex and pump your Sweeper, Echo Candle, pick your stuff, do your multiple attacks. Yeah. Then for triggers, again, I told you that I need to finish the game very fast. So 2, 5, 8 crit, 4 draw PGs, and 4 heals. So you just want to rush as fast as possible. If you got angerblader, you're just going to rush your opponents as fast as possible. So nothing much to say about the trigger lineup. You just want to speed up, and there are chances that you're going to stock up your triggers in the gauge. Then you can pick up the PGs, so you can use them. If it's a heal, you can pick it up for 20k defense. Yeah, and other times you just hope yourself to get a crit, so you can put it somewhere, maybe on your Sweeper Echo Candle, on your Gigarex, on your angerblader, or anything that is big, like pump by this. Yeah. So that's probably the list. Nothing too much to talk about the content. So let's jump into some ways that you choose to ride and some like combos or actions that you can do with this deck. Okay, so if you see yourself a Gigarex and or angerblader in your opening hand, make sure you keep them because we don't play too much of them. So whenever you get one of the pieces, just keep them. Of course, angerblader is a must keep. Gigarex I really suggest you to keep if you don't see any other great freeze. Or if you see this, then you can just return this back. So you can keep your Gigarex, because Gigarex is still key. And for your Great Run Ride, likely a Prism Bird, even this is okay. Because if you call a Lacerator X, put it a gauge, then you can still ride it, attack with it, put another gauge here, in case if the gauge that under it is not what you actually want to pick up, then you can still increase the chances to put another one so you have choices. Then you can just swing with it for early rush, then you can like push your opponents to more damage or at least force them some guards. Then grade 2s, what I usually prefer is a Regiodon, even though it's a multiple attacker, but it gives you gauges, so I still prefer that way. Or your Pyro, so you can kind of lost one and draw one and call something else. Better call one if you can, and see if you have a Sonic Gnaw in your hand. If you do, then of course, let's say this is still here, then you, when on ride, kind of blast, draw yourself a card, call this, put one gauge under it, call it. Then if this card hit, you can just put it at the back, so you still have gauges there, so it's still fine. Swing with this first, see if you got any triggers. If not, that's fine. Attack, stock 2 more gauges, one from here, one from here. So he himself is already 24k with 8, so he's already 32. And if you by chance hit, then you can retire this to draw yourself a card and use the skill to pick up yourself another card. If you have this with a gauge, you can just pop it. If your opponents like have something that the gauge that you have under it as a gauge can still hit, you can just pop it, draw one, call the whatever unit, maybe like this, then give it a gauge if you need to. If you don't need to, that's fine. Then swing with it again. So there's some early rushes that you can do, but even if you don't have those, just this setup is still fine. Then entering Great Freeze, of course, ideal situation or like godlike situation, you would just ride your angerblader, then try, since you have 3 here already, so you can call whatever. If you got another one, if you got this or any other stuff, even like this, you can just call them on the Excel circle, put some gauges under it, and try to withstand it. Or you can just simply call that, attack with it, give it a gauge, then use something like this to swing, pop that, and try to give it a gauge there. Then attack with this by itself, of course, to get another gauge. Then attack with this, just standing this one, and put some triggers there, and then you swing with this and swing with whatever you call from here, like that. Then it can still help you do some early rush. Or if you are going with your Gigarex, then you already say have 3 gauges here, say you have 1 gauges here, then what you need is 1 extra gauge. And it depends if you really want to keep it strong, or even if not, it's fine, because let's say it got 3 random gauges, Doesn't have to be these ones, but just an example here. Now you have 3 gauges here, you have say 1 here, assuming you ride a prison bird, okay? And what you can do is 1, call this, rest it, give it another gauge, and call it whatever, or even put it up. That's still fine. Now you can just put these 5 gauges to drop, and of course if you have something on the XL circle like this, you can just 555, deal your opponent's 1 damage. And you might say, hey, now you don't have any gauges, how are you going to make it survive? Now this will give it another gauge again, this will give it another gauge again, and when this attack, it will give whatever units that you want another gauges again. So what you have to do is simply just attack with it, or maybe since these ones already at the 5k, I will probably like attack with this since it's a 13, and attack with this. Then now I will declare to put gauges on. If I really call that one, call my Gigarex, then we'll put 1 here, put 1 here, put 1 here. If you want, you can put 1 here. So let's say just random cards, okay? 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and now you're on 1 again. And doesn't matter if you got any triggers or not, then you can simply just attack with this, retire this, draw yourself a card, increase the gauges if you have spare counterblast, so making it a 24k on XL2 and 29k on XL1. Then you can soul blast, since you do have a lot of souls here, to pick up whatever from this. Let's say it's another Gigarex, so you can ride next turn. Then this sets attack, and this will give you another gauge, and this will give you another gauge, and now you have 3 again. So it's quite easy. So you can simply do this kind of sets every single turn to deal your opponent some damages, give your front row some powers, and simply build it back up. And you can just keep doing it, or until you finally meet yourself a angerblader. Then you can put more gauges to make sure you can stand 2 or 3 units with just 1 counterblast and just rush from there. Yeah, so quite easy to pilot, but at the same time, you do need to be very clever, very careful on what you're doing. So I've shown you some actions that you can do. Even if you ride a Gigarex, it's not like the end of the day. Of course, angerblader is winning condition #1, but I'm still trying to make Gigarex here to shine. And like, even if you got this and you have your Radiodon, then you can still attack, give it a gauge. Maybe you are a little bit lucky to get him here. Then you can still kill, pop it, draw a 7 card, pop one of your opponent's unit, call it, give it a gauge, and you swing with it, give it another gauge, and when it attacks, give it another gauge. So as long as you have your Echo Canto somewhere that you can do multiple attacks of, like your Radiodon, your Blue Springs, you can simply get 3 gauges as long as you're on Gigarex. And Sonic Nova is just a safety plan in case if you are not riding your Gigarex, or if you really want to do something like what I want to do, what I showed you before, 3 gauges from here, 1 gauges from your Lacerator X, and 1 gauges from here. and you are wondering how are you going to build it up, then one here, one here, one here, done. And superior core, one here, one here, one here, done. So it's so easy to build up your aggro cantos, and you just need to be a little bit more careful against force clans. As long as they see you using your sweeper's aggro canto, they will try to attack it with some higher power stuff. And since I'm only running 4 draws, sometimes it's a little bit hard for you to guard with, so try to build it up. But as long as you see your sweeper aggro canto, give it more gauges so you can stay longer, or if you can rush enough, use your opponent's resources fast enough, then you can use what I just showed you. 3 gauges, 1-1, deal 1 damage, get 5, and build it up again with 3. So you can just even simply hit for 29k by itself, and 8k boost from Sonic Nova, make sure you get to the 3, then you can hit for 37k. Yeah, so I think it's big enough for now for Tachi. Yeah, so I think that's it. Of course, if you have other questions you want to ask, let me know. I can try to answer them if I know the answer, because I don't know what you're going to ask, but yeah. So try to put it out, see if you like it. I myself like it a lot, even though I did had hard times against Force Clans. I've been playing against Luard, I have been playing against Gear Chronicle. It's not really that bad. Of course, they are a lot stronger now with the promos, or even when Luard with limitations. It's still having a very, very high power, and you don't have a lot of hands to defense. But I still find myself picking up a good fight. It's not like completely one-sided game, so definitely worth a try. Again, put it up, have fun with it, and let me know your thoughts. Yeah. So thanks guys for watching. I will be making some great nature videos very soon after I've done the testing, so you'll be able to see the fight videos and deck profiles like next week. Probably. Should be. Yeah. And before that, I will see you guys in the next video. Signing off.